and take the red pill.
We're at war with the most dangerous enemy that has ever faced mankind in his long climb from the swamp to the stars.
The disastrous rise of misplaced power exists.
All we have built, all we have worked for, would be destroyed.
There is nothing the political establishment will not do.
And this nation will not be fully free until all its citizens are free.
Our arms must be mighty, ready for instant action,
These criminals cannot be rewarded.
so that no potential aggressor may be tempted to risk his own destruction.
There is a point beyond which they must not advance.
They're coming after you, and I'm just standing in their way. Here I am.
You and I have a rendezvous with destiny.
The cost of freedom is always high.
Those who had the most to lose did the least to prevent its happening.
Our movement is about replacing a failed and corrupt political establishment.
Well, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
This is a crusade! This is a holy war against the deep state!
We never wanted to be right, but yet things are all adding up to the firestorm.
Now let's set the record straight. There's no argument over the choice between peace and war, but there's only one guaranteed way you can have peace, and you can have it in the next second. Surrender. Admittedly, there's a risk in any course we follow other than this, but every lesson of history tells us that the greater risk lies in appeasement. And this is the specter our well-meaning liberal friends refuse to face, that their policy of accommodation is appeasement. And it gives no choice between peace and war, only between fight or surrender. If we continue to accommodate, continue to back and retreat, eventually we have to face the final demand, the ultimatum. And what then? When Nikita Khrushchev has told his people he knows what our answer will be. He has told them that we're retreating under the pressure of the Cold War, and someday, when the time comes to deliver the final ultimatum, our surrender will be voluntary, because by that time, we will have been weakened from within spiritually, morally, and economically. He believes this because from our side he's heard voices pleading for peace at any price, or better read than dead, or as one commentator put it, he'd rather live on his knees than die on his feet. And therein lies the road to war, because those voices don't speak for the rest of us. You and I know and do not believe that life is so dear and peace so sweet as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery. If nothing in life is worth dying for, when did this begin? Just in the face of this enemy? Or should Moses have told the children of Israel to live in slavery under the Pharaohs? Should Christ have refused the cross? Should the patriots at Concord Bridge have thrown down their guns and refused to fire the shot heard round the world? The martyrs of history were not fools. And our honored dead, who gave their lives to stop the advance of the Nazis, didn't die in vain. Where then is the road to peace? Well, it's a simple answer after all. You and I have the courage to say to our enemies, there is a price we will not pay, there is a point beyond which they must not advance. Winston Churchill said the destiny of man is not measured by material computations. When great forces are on the move in the world, we learn they're spirits, not animals. He said there's something going on in time and space and beyond time and space, which, whether we like it or not, spells duty. You and I have a rendezvous with destiny. We'll preserve for our children this, the last best hope of man on earth, or we'll sentence them to take the last step into 1,000 years of darkness.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. My name is Josh. Welcome to the Red Pill Project's Daily Dose, live with you Monday through Thursday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. This is where we bring you the unfolding global conspiracy, and a conspiracy it absolutely is. And it says it on my shirt, but it also said it right there. Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it to our children in the bloodstream. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on for them to do the same. Wise words there by Ronald Reagan. Another one. I mean, it's funny because that's the quote that I actually have pulled up on Twitter right now. But, you know, July 4th just happened here. And I hope you all had a great holiday, a great July 4th. It is my favorite holiday. I drove the kids across the country. We went to New York State from Minnesota, about a 16-hour drive, had a blast, did the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Niagara Falls, did all that cool stuff. Went out to my brother Jason's house, had a great time. We had a great fireworks show out there. That was pretty fun, actually. And saw my family. So 4th of July, my favorite time of the year. It's one time that me and my kids just get the take off and go have some fun. So hope all of you had a great 4th of July. But, you know, we look at the 4th of July and we have to remember what the 4th of July actually was. What is the 4th of July and why do we celebrate it? See, it's not about fireworks. It's not about barbecues and family. It's about something completely different. And I want to pull up what it's about right here. And I want to read you what it's about. What happened on that fretful day back in July 1776. And why it's so important. Now, the date was actually supposed to be June 4th and then June 3rd. And they moved it to July 4th. And I forgot what it was. I think it was closer to Thomas Jefferson's birthday. But this is one of my favorite things to read, because it's so truthful. These words weren't written in a haste on one night when someone was angry. They took a long time to come about, and they were very thoughtful and presented and articulated. But see, this is what the July 4th holiday is about. The unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America. When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with one another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them. A decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to institute a new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its power in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence, indeed, will dictate that governments long established shall not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly all experience hath shewn that mankind are more disposed to suffer, while evils are sufferable, than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Now, many people you ask, and you ask them, you know, how many rights were established or proclaimed in the Declaration of Independence? They'll say 3, right? 3 rights were established there. The life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It says it right here that we are endowed with our Creator, by our Creator, with certain unalienable rights. Among these, not all of these, among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But there is another right that is declared in the Declaration. And this is why I love this holiday. This is why I love this document. That's why I love the fact that we celebrate this. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and institute a new government. They must have left that out of the Constitution, or they tipped it in under the Second Amendment. Either way, it's right there. Your God-given right is the right to choose your form of government, to choose how you want to be governed as a people. And when the government that no longer serves the people, but instead rules over you, has been cast into absolute despotism, it becomes that time. And I'm not calling for a civil war or revolution or any of those things. What I'm saying is that we take all the valiant efforts that we can do to save this country, to save our way of life, to save our culture, and to get back to what it means to be an American. That's the truth. That's what the 4th of July is for me. Every damn day is the 4th of July. So I hope you all had a great 4th of July. I hope it was momentous. Enjoy it. Just amazing in every way. Let's go to Donald Trump and listen to what he had to say on his message about the 4th of July. I'm going to pull this up real quick. All right, here we go.
Today, as we celebrate the 4th of July with friends and family, let us never forget that our freedom has been earned through the blood and sweat and sacrifice of American heroes. And these were great American heroes. And let us share the grateful heart of our nation with every veteran and member of the United States Armed Forces, truly special people. We are in awe of their courage, and we are eternally in their debt. Together, we honor their noble sacrifice by pledging our love and loyalty to our country, our flag, and our fellow citizens. We are and will always be one people, one family, and one glorious nation under God. Happy 4th of July, and God bless America.
Well, he's right on many aspects there. That the 4th of July, we honor those who came before and gave the ultimate sacrifice. But see, that's not what the 4th of July is. And I love Donald Trump, and I'm thankful for his speech there. But I would have loved it for him to talk about what the 4th of July was really about. Would have loved for him to say that we should give thanks to our founding fathers for rising up against a tyrannical and oppressive dictator and a European banking system which sought to enslave their people through debt and credit systems. That we turned our backs against a monarchy that just wanted to tax us to death, control and steal our land, and take everything that we earn. I wish he would have talked about the rights that came about through the Bill of Rights and the Constitution. Wish he would talk about how we've deviated from that path as a people, but we are now back on that path. We are now recognizing the truth. We are slaves. I don't say that lightly. We are slaves. Nobody wants to think that they're a slave. Most people would deny it. Most people would yell and scream at me and try to fight me when I try to tell them that they are a slave. But tomorrow, they'll wake up in the morning and they'll go to a job that they hate. They'll earn money from a job that they're underpaid on. They'll put it into a pension account that never will secure them in the future. They'll go out and buy groceries that is nothing more than controlled products on the shelf at the grocery store. They'll go out and drive a vehicle that is owned by the bank, owned by the state, and will most likely break down before they ever get it paid off. See, there's lots of ways that we are slaves. Physical bondage isn't what slavery is. Slavery is about the mental bondage. Slavery is about this thing right here, and the ability to direct your mind in any which way that you see fit. Most people can't do that. Most people have a hard time building their lives the way that they wish or they seek. Instead, what happens is they fall into various different paradigms created by the external reality. They get caught up in the social hype, in the gist. They get caught up with being an influencer. They get caught up and wondering what their favorite musicians are doing, their favorite actors. And they seek to be that which they probably can never be. And the reason they can't is because that is a selected group of people. And you and I, my friends, are not in those cool groups. We didn't come from blue blood royal families. We didn't grow up in multi-billionaire and trillionaire households. We didn't go to Ivy League schools. We didn't sell our souls to the devil. And we didn't grow up with friends who had influence at that large scale. We also didn't pack up our moral and ethical base and put it away and say that we'll do anything for power and control. But if you walk down to Washington, D.C., that's everywhere you go. Even if you look back from 2018 to current date, you look at Lauren Boebert, you look at Marjorie Taylor Greene, you go back to the 2012 timeframe, you look at the Tea Party group. Those people ran on platforms that aligned with the social zeitgeist. It aligned with what was happening in the world. They aligned with groups like you and me. And how fast did it take for them to sway off course? If you don't remember, Lauren Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene, immediately when they got in the Congress, they were censored by Nancy Pelosi. And they learned their lesson real fast, didn't they? You go back to the Tea Party. I mean, Ted Cruz came out of the Tea Party. Well, you find out a decade later that these were nothing more than opportunists who saw the chance to win an election under the guise of false pretenses, to align with a political affiliation, a social ideology, and to take power and control. How many more happened in 2020 and 2022? One thing I can tell you about Donald Trump is he's not that man. And I know he's not that man because he had that ability to align with the rhinos, to align with the neocons, to align with the Tea Party. But he didn't. He played his own game, but he was hammered by Congress and Senate in his first term. That's how I know it'll be different. Rumors are that Donald Trump is going to announce his VP pick in 10 days. The rumors are flaring that it is General Michael Flynn. So my thoughts on this, and I know people saw the one document with the Federal Election Commission of where Flynn was registered under the Trump, that has been shown to be not true. General Flynn posted about that saying, nope, that wasn't us. That's bullshit. It's not happening. He claims that he is not the VP pick. And I hope that he's not. I hope that General Michael Flynn is not Trump's vice presidential pick. Although there's only one angle that actually works in. And that is the aspect of if they try to eliminate Donald Trump, then Flynn would become president. That is a very, very good angle and very good strategy. But I believe that Flynn is either going to be National Security Director or Secretary of Defense or Secretary of State. One of those three is where Flynn will be when Trump wins. So that's my thoughts. So before all that happens, though, we have to get through some minutia. We have to get through some shit, don't we? I don't think many people like Newt Gingrich. I don't really care for Newt Gingrich too much. I think he was an establishment player for a very long time. He got the short end of the stick, and now he's talking out about how it works. Listen to what Newt Gingrich says here.
I think Trump is the most aggressive and competent opponent that the Franklin Roosevelt coalition has ever faced. They've run the country now since 1932. They built huge bureaucracies, huge sets of rules. They've paid off millions of people with taxpayer money. And all of a sudden, they have an opponent who's very serious about dismantling and replacing their corrupt system. They're terrified of him, and from their standpoint, breaking the law, rigging the game, whatever it takes, they're going to do to try to beat him at every level. The trial in New York is just one example. It's totally dishonest. I actually think that the judge in the New York trial and the students illegally occupying the building in Columbia University are really the same people. They're people who believe in breaking the law to impose their will on the United States. And I think that you're seeing a trial which is probably the most dishonest, most corrupt trial of any political figure.
So Newt Gingrich is spot on correct here. Whether we agree with who that man is or what he's done is irrelevant. But he says the voting system is rigged. Voting is rigged. Both parties are paid off. This is the Roosevelt system, the FDR system. Not just politicians, but millions of people being paid off with taxpayer money. They'll do everything to stop Trump. And I don't care how you feel about Trump. Okay? Here's the thing. Trump might not be the best candidate for president of the United States. Might not be the best human being to serve as president of the United States. But here's the thing. He's the one that we know can win, can get in, and get shit done. He's the one that we know is going to reap absolute fury on the deep state. We know it. And see, that's the opportunity that we need to take back our country. We know that this man is the leader of MAGA, but MAGA itself is an independent ideology. We live and survive without Donald Trump. Remember that. Are they going to take out Donald Trump? I think there is too much at risk to take out Donald Trump. I've gone over my election theories before. I believe that they're going to try to steal the House of Representatives. They'll try to steal the election on January 6th. They'll potentially even cheat for Trump and say that Donald Trump cheated. That's how he won all the bellwethers, so forth. That's a possibility. The possibility of the election is not even going to happen in the first place. That is a very big possibility. And I'm going to go over a few ideas of how that's going to happen. Because, I mean, shit, if you've been listening to this show for any length of time, we've been spot on, right? And now what happens next? Holy shit. Is it going to happen? Everything is adding up to what I've been saying in the sense of August and September. But I want to talk about a modern day prophet real quick. Her name was Ayn Rand. This is a quote from 1952 with Ayn Rand. We are fast approaching the stage of ultimate inversion, the stage where government is free to do anything it pleases, while the citizens may act only by permission, which is the stage of the darkest periods of human history, the stage of rule by brute force. Kind of interesting what she's saying there, because there's some articles in the news the last few days that kind of aligned with that, what Ann was saying. Idaho libraries ban children and demand visitors show ID if they appear under 30 years old. Idaho Code 18-1514 came effective July 1st, 2024. To proceed beyond this point, you must be 18 years of age or older. If you are under 30, please be prepared to show a photo ID or have an unrestricted library card. Present your card for it to be scanned. That's an Idaho library, people. And you got to wonder, what's this all about? What is this agenda truly about? What are they trying to set up What are they trying to set up? We've talked about 15-minute cities. We've talked about the Agenda 2030, Agenda 2050 with the World Economic Forum and what they're trying to implement at the United Nations, the technocratic, authoritarian, oligarchical controlled New World Order, where all the nations of the world lose their individualized sovereignty and align towards a one world government. I've talked about how a year and a half ago in China, there was massive banks shutting down in the Guangzhou province. And people from other provinces were traveling to that bank because online systems were down. We're traveling to that bank to pull their money out. Unfortunately, they couldn't make it to the bank on time. Why? Well, see, in China, in order to utilize anything that is public, you have to have an identification, a social credit identification, which also carries your vaccination status. These people, when they went to board the public transportation, when they scanned their IDs, it flagged them for COVID and said that they needed to be quarantined and were quarantined for a period of up to 2 weeks. Unfortunately for these people, they had no COVID. They had recently been tested. They were up to date on their vaccines. But see, the AI systems that are integrated, the AI system knows, hey, this bank's collapsing. These are the people that are aligned with that bank. This is where they're going to be traveling from. Shut them down so they can't get their money out. That's the system that is being put in place. I've talked about how as their system becomes implemented with real ID, everything that is coming about with CBDCs and how money will be controlled and programmed, that your cars will need a special ID that'll have vaccination status and so forth on it in order to turn it on to entry. Same thing with your apartments, to get into grocery stores, to get into your bank, to access your funds in the bank. And that when your social credit score drops and plummets, you can no longer live in that apartment or that house. You can no longer drive that car. You can no longer access your money in the bank. Your money becomes worth less. That's the system they are creating. And if you don't believe me, just take a look at China. Here's your 15-minute city entry point. We don't need to listen to it. This person's entering, scanning their phone, and then facial recognition. Scan their phone, facial recognition. This is to enter a public area in China. This is your 15-minute cities. If you guys have ever seen the movie In Time with Justin Timberlake, if you haven't, I highly recommend, my fan fell. I highly recommend you go and watch that tonight. In Time with Justin Timberlake. But there's a point in the movie where he's transferring between sectors, and he has to pay to enter each sector, and he has to go to a massive security checkpoint. That's 15-minute cities. That's the New World Order. That's the slavery system. See, they haven't enslaved us physically. We are living on the plantation. Many are mentally enslaved. But see, the next aspect is to get you physically enslaved, to truly put you into a digital slave matrix of bondage. That's their goal, and that's what they're after right now. Let's go back into here. That was actually the last stuff that I was going to talk about, but that's okay. Elon Musk has come out and said they want to cheat. Elon Musk warns Democrats are planning to steal more election with non-citizen voters. And I said, yeah, they are. The House seats. Why would they go after just the House of Representatives? Number one is you don't need as an elaborate plan to steal a congressional district. There's congressional districts out there that only have 20,000 people, 15,000 people, 30,000 people. See, we had indications of this about a year ago. Matt Gaetz, congressman, was talking about this. Why are 16 Republicans not seeking re-election? And the same 16 Republicans also took money directly from the DNC. They take money from the DNC and all of a sudden they're not seeking re-election. They're also contested states. They're states where the races are paper thin between Republicans and Democrats. You only need 8 House seats to turn that House. 16 Republicans are not going for re-election. So they have a 50% chance of turning the House. Now, a lot of those seats, 50,000, 20,000, 100,000 people, you get a 49-51 ratio. It's a few thousand votes is all you need. See, that's the idea. They're not going to go for this massive campaign to steal an election on the presidential level. They don't need to. All they have to do is win power of the House of Representatives. If they win power of the House of Representatives, a few thousand votes here, a few thousand votes here, a few thousand votes here, they take over power and control on January 3rd. And on January 6th, think projection, think inversion. On January 6th, the Democrats can contest the state election results and send them back to the states. And they can stop Donald Trump from taking power on that day. And they can do it legally. I'm telling you, when you look at tactical scenarios in the sense of how these people operate, this is probably one of the best political strategies that the Democrats had to preserve power. And at that point, they can implement anybody they want to be president interim. And they just never will give up power. There's other aspects here. World War III, we all know that. But see, Joe Biden isn't doing too well. Things are not going well for Joe Biden. We knew that this was going to happen. We've talked about this for a long time. I've even said that the Democrats, the deep state, are going to turn on Joe Biden. I've been saying this for a long time now, haven't I? He's a liability. You got to wonder, I mean, Joe Biden, in a sense, he's only president because he's a puppet. And for the longest time, Joe Biden was the puppet who was controlling Barack Obama to a certain degree, utilizing homosexuality, drug abuse, and these types of things. Now, Barack Obama controls Joe Biden through various different powers and forces. Biden and congressional Democrats are headed towards an all-out war. This is an article published on MSN. Why? Because more and more Democratic congressmen and senators are coming forth calling for Joe Biden to step down and resign, to jump out of the election race, to just not even go forth on it, because they know he can't win, but they also know he's a liability. Biden has called out the elites in the Democrat Party for attempting to replace him, challenges them to run against him at the convention. What else we got here? A Parkinson's doctor made 10 White House visits according to the White House logbooks over the last 2 years from November 22nd to current date. A Parkinson's doctor. Not a mystery anymore, is it? Chaos has erupted in the press briefing room as KGP, Karine Jean-Pierre, repeatedly declines to say why a Parkinson's expert has visited the Biden White House over 10. Let's listen to this. This is a fiasco.
When it comes to talking about the president's health, when you were here last Tuesday, you were asked if the president had had any medical examinations since his physical in February, or that included the time period after the debate. You said flatly no. 3 days later, you admitted the president had a quote, short check-in with the medical team thereafter. I mean, those are two very different answers.
No. Actually, if you were to listen to I think I did a 30-minute gaggle on Friday, 30 minutes with I think it was with the pool, and I said he did not have a medical. I cleared it up. You're right. You're correct. I said he didn't still stand, but he didn't have a medical exam. I said that in the gaggle, and you're right, I said that in the briefing. He had a check-in with, and he said this on Friday. He had a check-in with his medical doctor, which is something that he does a couple times a week, as you know, and I stated this as well. He has, for those who don't know, obviously outside of the briefing room, outside of the White House, many Americans don't actually understand this, so let's take a step back. They deal with their medical issues or physicals very, very differently. They are very, they are lucky if they get to see their doctor once or twice a year, right? They have to get in a car, they have to either take public transportation in order to make that happen. The president's medical unit is literally down on the other side of the colonnade, is just down the steps from the residence, and so a couple times a week he does a check-in, a verbal check-in with his doctor while he's exercising. That is something that happens often. Matter of fact, he did a check-in today because I know folks were going to ask about if he was tested for COVID. He was not. We are following CDC guidance. He was not tested for COVID, just to let you guys know about that one. And if he has any symptoms, obviously we would test him.
Is that
but
in the context of the second gentleman's diagnosis?
yes, which is why. No. It's in context of the second gentleman. But to answer your point, he did not have a medical exam. He did not have a physical. He did do like a verbal check-in with his doctor a couple days after the debate, and it was very quick. It was a couple of words that were spoken to each other, and that's how we were able to give you that answer. But he did not have a medical exam. He did not have a physical.
Of course. Blabbing, doesn't know what she's talking about. Listen to this one.
Quick ones. There's been a lot of reporting in the last 24 hours about a Parkinson's expert who's come to visit the White House almost a dozen times over the last year or so, including at least one meeting with the president's physician. Could you state, like, very clearly, yes or no, was that expert here to participate in anything surrounding the care of the President of the United States?
So let me just say a couple of things. We have had a comprehensive, and I just want to take another step back, comprehensive physical examination. The president has had that. We've given a comprehensive report. We've shared that the past 3 years. Every year that he has had this exam, he sees a neurologist. And just to give you a quote from that, from the report most recently in February, an extremely detailed neurological exam was again reassuring in that there were no findings which would be consistent with any cerebellar or other central neurological disorders such.
So you know what that just proves, though? That it's all a scam. That the testing really doesn't work for these things until symptoms actually set in. I mean, if that's what she's saying, right? It's kind of a joke, isn't it? They are covering up for Joe Biden's mental and physical health. We have to understand that these people are going to be held accountable and responsible for this. That Kamala Harris knows what's going on. Joe Biden knows what's going on. Karine Jean-Pierre knows what's going on. They know that Joe Biden is mentally deteriorating, that he can't finish 2 freaking sentences. We all saw it in the debate. Why are you screaming at me? Jill Biden snaps at a reporter for asking about calls for her husband to drop out of the race. According to Representative Don Baer, who compared Biden to Jesus, sings a different tune now. He said he is having trouble putting 2 sentences together. Then we're getting articles being run. Who's going to replace Biden? Gavin Newsom is on the campaign trail again in Michigan. Whitmer has said that she is not going to, and Kamala Harris. I mean, the best that the Democrat Party can put forth, okay? The best the Democrat Party can put forth. Gretchen Whitmer, who steals her elections and, runs psyops within her state. Gavin Newsom, who is Nancy Pelosi's nephew, as well as bought his office and has turned California into California. And Kamala Harris, who built her whole career on being on her knees and prosecuting people for nothing. That's the best the Democrat Party can come up with. I mean, why not just go back to Bernie? If you're going to talk old guys, I mean, the Democrats have a chance of actually winning with Bernie or Robert F. Kennedy. Pick him up. Geez, they might actually win something. But see, they don't want to win because they have another methodology to gaining power, a methodology that operates in the sense that they don't have to ever worry about not being in power when they utilize the strategy and the tactic. That is the ultimate psyop. This last weekend, Laura Loomer reported that there's a massive cover-up taking place at the Biden headquarters right now as they're having trouble explaining to why the press were pulled their access today when they were trying to travel with Joe Biden. According to various different insiders told to her and other people as well, Joe Biden suffered a medical emergency on board Air Force One. From what I heard is he blacked out and was incoherent with his speech. When he did land, he was able to walk off Air Force One. Everything was fine. But they probably just reduced some stimulants on him or increased some stimulants on him and got him going again. Joe Biden just recently sent a letter to Congress declaring he is staying in the race despite his rapidly deteriorating health. The Intelligencer on Twitter reported this: to replace Joe Biden as the Democrats' presidential nominee, a small group of party leaders say President Biden, Barack Obama, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, and Jen O'Malley Dillon should decide the new candidate, according to a new article published by the Intelligencer. Oh, yeah. This is New York Mag. New York Mag is how to pick a new Democrat presidential candidate fast, get the leaders together, and make the choice. The mainstream media has turned on Joe Biden. But you have to ask yourself, number one, is Joe Biden was a massive liability. Too many congressional investigations into it, too many congressional subpoenas out there for information that can damage not only Joe Biden, but the heart of the DNC and the Democrat Party. Number two is Hunter Biden became a massive liability for his father. The overseas business dealings don't only tie into the Biden family's embezzlement scheme, but also tie in to various different nonprofits, philanthropies, and NGOs. And all three of those nonprofits, NGOs, and philanthropies tie back to massive amounts of other Democrats and Republicans. So the Biden family has become a massive liability for the DNC and the RNC, and this is why they are seeking to remove him. Unfortunately, Joe Biden is not going to step down because he knows the consequences. If he steps down while he is still alive, the investigations will continue. The Supreme Court has declared that presidents have immunity for official acts, but partial immunity for various other acts. Joe Biden understands that, as when he was vice president, he had the classified documents case that happened against him. The vice president cannot take classified docs. He did. He didn't store them correctly. He wasn't supposed to store them at all. He's most likely going to have charges brought up on him about this during the Trump administration. Then there's the quid pro quo. There's the embezzlement of money that Joe Biden and his family have been doing, the pay for play schemes that they've been doing, as well as Hillary Clinton. This all leads back to massive amounts of Democrat donors and various different NGOs who have profited in the billions of dollars of taxpayer dollars over the last 12 years. So Joe Biden stands to be a liability. When he was president, it wasn't a big deal. So what are they going to do with Joe Biden? I've made the prediction. I've said it. I put it out there. Joe Biden will pass away from natural causes in office between August and September, potentially October 2024. He will pass away. The passing away of Joe Biden opens the door for the DNC to basically clean the slate. Number one is the Biden family is no longer a liability. It becomes a omen to investigate a dead president. Congress isn't going to touch it. Senate's not going to touch it. Nobody's going to open an investigation up into it. And so all of that dies right there. Number two is it removes Joe Biden immediately from the DNC ticket. There are 3 states of which, if they replace Joe Biden right now, the DNC cannot get a new candidate on the ballot. Only through death can that happen. So, the clean slate. Now the new candidate comes in there, they transfer the funds over, they begin campaigning. Number 3, Biden isn't polling very well against Donald Trump. CNN, MSNBC, all liberal mainstream media posts are showing that Donald Trump is points ahead of Joe Biden. In the last debate was a critical error on the Biden campaign's front. They should have never have done it, but it sets the stage, sets the narrative. So with Joe Biden passing away in office, they get to enter in Hillary Clinton, Gavin Newsom, Michael Obama, whoever they want to put in there that they believe can poll really well against Donald Trump. They know Michael Obama is polling well against Donald Trump, but I think it'll be Hillary. I think she's all ready. I think she's ready to go. I think that they'll swap out in September, October timeframe with Hillary, and then you'll see the polls drastically shift. That's coming. But see, they got to get around Donald Trump winning. This man's winning at every angle. Judge Cannon just granted Trump's motion to pause some of the deadlines in the Florida docs case to consider SCOTUS's immunity opinion and potential impact on the case. Trump's lawyers filed the motion on July 5th. But see, they don't want you to know that we are winning, that we are taking down the deep state, that we are systematically destroying the old guard. Instead, what happens is they have to set the narrative for what happens tomorrow, what happens the next day. And that narrative, the new boogeyman on the street, is global warming. And they have to make it as if global warming is this massive, huge problem, which, in my opinion, it's not. We just saw Hurricane Beryl come through the Caribbean and now is hitting Texas. This is the first ever recorded Category 5 hurricane in June. They didn't think it would hit Texas, but it did. 3 dead after Beryl landfall. Millions are without power in Texas. Las Vegas, all-time record high temperatures shattered by 3 degrees. Hit 120 degrees out there. Palm Springs, 124 degrees in a historic heat wave, toppling all-time temperature records in the West. What is this doing to the farmers' fields? What's all this excess water that we're having in the Midwest doing to all the farmers' fields? What is it doing to the supply chain and the food supply? Keep that in mind. Remember the movie Trading Places, where they were waiting for the oranges report to come out and they were betting for it or against it? This year, it's going to be a very bad year for oranges. Just saying. Bad year for oranges. Bad year for corn. Bad year for soy. Bad year for wheat. Because we're headed into a supply chain crunch. We're headed into crisis mode because the world is on the fucking brink. But wait, there's more. A lot more. I want you to check this out. International Bird Flu Summit, October 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, 2024. The list of speakers are aligned with people from the U.S. government to the medical industrial complex. Interestingly enough, the majority of the topics and speakers are climate change experts and focusing on all new buzzwords or Agenda 2030. The parts that focus on bird flu get really interesting. It's almost like Event 201 or catastrophic contagion would happen at Johns Hopkins University in a global planning exercise. Were they planning on this happening in the next few years? What do we see? Mass surveillance systems, fatality management, mass vaccination, civil unrest, quarantine management, and much, much more. Let me switch screens and show you some of the topics that they're going to talk about. Mass fatality management planning. Develop, maintain plans, procedures, programs, and systems. Develop and implement training and exercise programs. Direct fatality management tactical operation. To activate fatality management operation. Conduct morgue operations. Oh, that's interesting. Military preparedness and response plan for pandemic influenza. Real-time tracking of avian influenza on military installations, strategic defense plans for mitigating pandemic influenza impact, collaboration with civil authorities for seamless response. That's martial law, people, FYI. Coordinated regional efforts, lessons learned and best practices, interagency communication, resource allocation, and pandemic response. Martial law. What's the next one say? Because this gets better. First responders and fire department. Oh, now they're going to coordinate with all your local fire and police. Protecting the fire department, personal health and safety, transitioning into all hazards incident management responders, conducting mass vaccination efforts, enforcing quarantine measures effectively. Yeah, it sounds like authoritarianism freaking on the cusp. Global influenza surveillance networks and delivery of vaccine and antiviral medications. Current and emerging approaches in vaccine development, advancements in avian influenza vaccine strategies, vaccine optimization and equitable access, strengthening antiviral medication distribution systems, enhancing global surveillance networks for timely response. So, Game Tech and myself had been talking for a while about the Department of Homeland Security here in the United States of America is running various drills and exercises throughout various U.S. cities. These are national exercises that are hinged upon weather-created disasters that produce mass casualty situations. Avian flu is being blamed on global warming, by the way. You have dengue breaking out in southern Florida. That's the Oxitec mosquitoes. But when we start looking at this, remember, lessons learned from COVID-19. Now they know what works and what doesn't work, what they need to do, what they can't do. It's going to be mass concentration camps and quarantine camps is what they're going to do. It's going to be your local police, firemen. It's going to be those people in the sense of see something, say something. Your neighbors are going to be the ones turning you in. The bus is going to come by and they're going to force you to get on. They're going to take you to quarantine camps. That's how they get rid of the guns. One person at night, every night in a small town, they send out 30, 40 patrol units. They go to various different neighborhoods where it's not all concentrated, and they start quarantining people that way. They do that over 10, 20 days. That's hundreds upon hundreds of people. The mass surveillance systems that they're implementing. This is AI-based systems using CCTV as well as cell phones. COVID-19 contact tracing, which applications are still on your phones. This is the world that is coming if we don't wake the fuck up. And here's the thing, is none of that agenda has changed with Donald Trump. Just keep that in mind. Not saying it won't, just saying it hasn't. I don't like being validated on certain things. NATO has met yesterday. And they met at a moment of peak uncertainty for the West. Leaders of the West's preeminent military alliance convened this week in Washington, D.C. The annual NATO summit marks the bloc's 75th anniversary, and the heads of its member states in attendance will seek to showcase their collective resolve and strength, but looming above the deliberations, a pronounced sense of vulnerability and anxiety. Why? Well, number one is Donald Trump is talking about all the rhetoric of making NATO pay for themselves, and the European countries don't like that. But on the second hand, you have Vladimir Putin. Vladimir Putin says it's not my job to judge terrorists. That's God's job. It's my job to send terrorists to God. Smart man right there. A few weeks ago, Vladimir Putin came out and said that they were going to retaliate against the West because we had a terrorist attack in a small village in Russia, and then we had a U.S. missile attack by Ukrainian forces on a Crimean beach, and Russia said that they are going to retaliate. I said that this retaliation, that Russia is going to retaliate against the U.S. in Ukraine. And what did I say? I said, watch for it. What Russia is going to do is NATO and the U.S. have been stockpiling weapons, munitions, artillery systems, weapon and missile systems, Patriot missile systems in Ukraine. They're not necessarily being used. They're stockpiling them there. But they're stockpiling them in the hearts of cities right near various different civilian populated areas. Why? Because any Western nation is not going to bomb a civilian population, unless you're Israel, a civilian population that take out the bad guys or the bad guys' weapon systems. They're just not. That's suicide in the sense of the United Nations Security Council. I said, Putin, he doesn't give a shit anymore. They've crossed the red line. Now it's time to send a message and to start hitting the NATO ammo depots, munitions depots in Ukraine in heavily densely populated areas. Does anybody know what happened today in Russia? And I know people are saying that they were U.S. missiles. They weren't U.S. missiles. Those were absolutely 100% Russian missiles. At least 44 civilians were killed and 168 injured in multiple shellings over the last 24 hours. In Kiev, Ukraine, Russian missiles hit the Okamahashi Children's Hospital, as well as an apartment building, an industrial facility, and a business center, and a private maternity hospital. 27 dead, including 3 children, 82 injured. The Dnipropetrovsk region, Russian rocket-fired struck the Kryvyi Rog and surrounding areas, 11 dead, 68 injured. In the Belgorod region, Ukrainian forces attacked villages, injuring multiple civilians. Shebekino saw 4 civilians injured, and the Nikolskoye, 3 dead and 3 injured from a shell hit. But Russia hit Kiev target. I even said that they were going to be in Kiev. I even said they were going to be in Kiev. Russia's going to hit these targets. NATO ammo depots, U.S. Patriot missile depots. This is where they're being stored. They're surrounded by civilians. I don't like being right about this shit, but this is wartime strategy. Now, why is NATO also nervous? Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso have signed a confederation treaty. France has lost colonial power, and the U.S. military is withdrawing from important air bases in northern Africa. We've talked about this in the sense of what the BRICS alignment has actually done. The one proxy war that's really being fought in northern Africa is between the West and China and Russia, the 2 main components of BRICS. That China and Russia are going in there and trying to rebuild roads and infrastructure and trying to grow agriculture to replace the Western supply system. The West is going in there and trying to formulate coups and remove leaders like they've always done and control people through various different points of debt. That is no longer working. The U.S. is being kicked out. The empire is being kicked out of these northern African nations. NATO is scared now because what's happening is that Russia and China are gaining land resources. This is a resource war for the future, people. This is about fertile farmland, agriculture. This is about rich minerals and natural resources. That's the war that's being fought because that ultimately controls the GDP of these countries. Who controls those resources will have a massive boost in the revenue, the GDP, gross domestic product of their countries, when their corporations can get in there and begin exploiting them. Cheaper farm products, cheaper agriculture, cheaper crops. You don't have to ship it all the way from the West to the East. You can just go from Northern Africa, distribute to the Middle East, Southern Europe, Asia. This is what BRICS is doing. It's smart. It's the smartest damn thing I've ever seen because it should have happened years ago. This should have been NAFTA and GATT. But see, the West wanted to control and dominate, and that's just not happening anymore. I'm not saying Russia isn't controlling and dominating. I'm not saying that China's not doing the same thing. They are. But they're just doing it in a very nice way. Hey, we'll build you roads and infrastructure. We will make sure that you stay in power and get elected. We're going to help your people, but we're going to take your fucking resources. And these people are jumping in joy for it. The world is on the brink of multiple different crises, all leading up to the 2024 election. Will any of them come about and manifest before then? I think that we've been accurate enough to say that that's a good possibility. Global economic collapse, though, I think that they're saving that one. I think that that is going to be at the curtail of a catalyst event. that the black swan economic event is going to happen after some type of major event globally, either a new pandemic or a World War III breaks out. One of those two events will have a catalyst into the global economic collapse. I think that we'll see that at some point in the next 18 months. And if they need it, scorch the earth before they ever give up power, because Donald Trump's going to win this election, then they will use it before the election to suspend the elections. Okay. World War III would suspend elections. Global pandemic would suspend elections. Or they'll use it in between when the transition of power comes about. Or if they steal the House, they can do it then and that time as well. So buckle up, Nancy. Shit's about to get crazy. I'm glad to be back, guys. I'm glad to see all of y'all out there. Chats are blowing up tonight. You guys are awesome. Fantastic. Much love, respect. God bless you guys. You guys all take care. Have a great night. I'm going to be back with you tomorrow night with another episode of the Red Pill Project's Daily Dose. Hey, if you guys are not subscribed to us, redpills.tv, that is the best place to find us. Go on over there. You can find all of our sponsor information as well as ways to support us. There's PayPal, Cash App, crypto, ways to support us over there on redpills.tv, as well as links to our private social network, which is socialredpill.com, and all of our sponsors, Pet Club 247. You can find that at redpills.tv/mushroom. Much love, respect. God bless, guys. Take care. Have a good night. See you guys tomorrow.
Spoon, that's impossible. Only try to realize the truth.
What truth?
There is no spoon.